Okay, good afternoon everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today on the Vincents webinar series. Today I'm pleased to be presenting for Vincents Forensic Technology on computer forensics and cybercrime. Basically a topic very much in the news at the moment, and how safe are you with regards to security, cybercrime, and also have a quick discussion about identity theft as well. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was myself. So I'm a director at Vincents. I'm also a member of the Chartered Accountants of Australia and New Zealand. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm also a certified information systems auditor, which is the CISA designation, and I'm also certified in many of the industry standard software type tools, and I'm an accredited business valuation specialist as well with the Institute. So my background is essentially in chartered accounting and investigations, forensic accounting. Probably about 10 years ago, doing a lot of investigations in fraud. They always involve computers, and becoming well versed in computer terminology and computer examinations was vital to my role, and so I've moved into that forensic technology space and specialise in that these days for Vincents. So what I thought I'd like to talk about today is an introduction to me, have a talk about what we're referring to when we talk about identity crime, talk about the relationship between identity crime and cybercrime, how those two things relate to each other, strategies which are really important, how to protect yourself and your business, and also how to protect your data, your electronic files, your logins, your credentials, and have a quick talk about some case studies as well. Something to keep in mind while we're doing this the whole way through is that all of this is very preventable. And the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, is absolutely true here. If you have good strategies in place to secure your identity, to secure your data, and you're aware of the risks, then you're far ahead of the game compared to some of those clients that we see, unfortunately, that all of these types of topics are being done in the past. They've already suffered loss, they've already suffered difficulties with regards to securing their identity, and these strategies can certainly help you having to go through the emotional and the also financial difficulties that most experience when they're talking about their experience with online fraud and cybercrime. The last word on password security, and probably the biggest takeaway from the talk today, if nothing else, recognise that having a unique password for each of your online accounts is far more important than the length, although that is important, the complexity, although that is important, and the randomness of your password, or most anything else that you've been told that you have to have. If you think of your password as a barrier to anyone entering your online account but you, then surely many different barriers are much more secure than one single barrier between you and the rest of the internet. And by that I mean people that use the same password for every online account that I have, be it social media, be it their business banking, be it their home login, be it their modem access credentials. Changing those passwords in a different way is extremely important, and people get upset when I tell them that, and I understand why. I myself have, I would say, several hundred online accounts, be it those social media, client accounts, Dropbox accounts, Facebook, all those types of things. I use some password software to keep track of all of that. Now, different people have different strategies. Because of the number of online accounts that I have, I find that that suits me. It might be that writing these things down on a piece of paper and keeping it in a locked drawer at home might work for you, but it's important to have those unique passwords. Otherwise, you're just really opening yourself up for tremendous risks. By using a unique password for each of your accounts, you're limiting the scope of a breach in the unlikely event that you do have one to just that one account. use a trusted system to organise your online identity. I've already mentioned there are password applications out there. There are some very good ones. I don't endorse any password application, of course, but I have used one for quite some time that's a very popular one, and it's been fantastic for me in terms of organising my passwords, my online identity. It's on my phone. It's an app that so I have it with me all the time, and all my passwords are different. Some of them are actually provided to me by the app itself. They're complicated passwords, and that's a system that works well for me, so I recommend that to everyone. So what is identity crime? Well, if you're not familiar with it, you've probably seen it in any number of online media accounts warning you of what the risks are. So when we're talking about your identity, the identity of your natural person, there is identity fabrication, so the creation of a fictitious identity to defraud, the alteration of one's identity, which usually follows the theft of one's identity, then that identity is used to fool others. And identity theft, of course, the theft or assumption of a pre-existing identity with or without consent, and obviously it's generally without consent or implied consent. Activities in which a perpetrator uses a fabricated identity or one that they've stolen is identity crime, and that's essentially what we're talking about here. So a lot of people are saying, look, this could never happen to me, identity crime. Well, the fact is that it is happening quite commonly. Most people may be unaware that it's happening at all, or not aware until it's too late. So we've known about this for a long time. There's been a documented increase in identity theft in this century. A rapid increase in the level of fraud, certainly in recent years, and in particular significant growing problem of identity fraud and identity theft. For victims of identity theft, and we have clients that have had to go through this devastating situation, it affects you financially and emotionally, and certainly in terms of your reputation. Once you're caught up in this type of thing, you're having to deal with people that perhaps in your life you wouldn't have thought you had to deal with, and that's criminals. You have to position yourself with socially in a way you may not have had to position yourself before, and that is to apologise to people for impacting their lives, because generally your identity has been used to fool others. In a business sense, it can affect your business reputation, your credit worthiness, and your online profile, and obviously your customer identity as well. So the impact can be felt on consumers. The fraud has a significant financial impact on you privately and publicly. So it's been a serious issue for some time, but because the general feeling is that people think that it won't happen to me, or it can't happen to me, or I'm too smart, it's something that always happens to other people. So my point earlier that if you have a strategy for dealing with this, or if you have a strong password system, then you're ahead of the game. And that might mean that you're not as big a target as others may be. So cybercrime in all its forms is an enabler of identity fraud targeting individuals or businesses, anything that has value, essentially. Statutes and the common law that we have both refer to the term cybercrime, which has a narrow meaning in Australia. It's used in the Cybercrime Act of 2001, and that details offences against computer data and the misuse of computers, the misuse of computer systems, that type of thing. But a broader meaning is now given to it at an international level, and certainly at a case level. Anything involving a computer or an online identity, we tend to refer to as cybercrime. It's a pejorative term with regards to anything with regard to the internet, computers, social media. That's a theft of identity or a crime. So the bigger picture, and some of this data is certainly out of date and perhaps unreliable, because the main fact is that most people who are the victim of cybercrime don't tell anyone about it. And that would probably be, we find, about a quarter of those who are affected won't tell anyone, let alone try and recover any of the money or report it to a law enforcement agency or a professional firm. So about 1 million Australians over the past 12 months experienced some form of identity theft and misuse, resulting in financial cost. And the average financial cost is close to $6,000, but again, it's probably much higher than that because most people don't report this type of crime. And we'll refer later to one of the most lucrative for criminals, one of the most lucrative types of crime is the love game, and we'll talk about that very soon, how people are duped out of their life savings. So most Australians don't tell anyone about it. 10% of Australians in the past 12 months experience some sort of identity misuse, and that's usually by a family member or someone known to them. So those statistics are frightening. So the factors that directly lead to this increase include an increase in businesses' reliance on establishing online identities with their customers, online accounts, online trading. Most customers would not meet their customers face-to-face anymore. It's all establishing the identity online through a credit card or a PayPal account. We've got a transient population now where people tend not to live and work in the same place. We've got fly-in, fly-out type arrangements. We've got cyber commuting as well, so various people often don't work or have an online identity other than where they live. So with that, with the increase in use of online information, there's of course a corresponding increase in the theft of that information. It's a critical threat to the business community if you're dealing with people who have established their identity in a false manner or they're misusing someone's identity. We've had clients who send out goods and services or have been accused of money laundering in terms of dealing with customers who they thought were in Australia and were overseas, or were asked to send payments overseas, and it's an extremely stressful time. Although it's cheap and attractive for criminals because all you need is a computer, you need access to a significant group of individuals who don't take care of their online identity, and it generates significant profits for a fairly low cost. And that's why it's so prevalent today. It's very cheap. No need for guns anymore. Just use your computer. So how can you protect yourself? Well, old school would say physical security. Secure your mailbox with a lock and make sure that your mail is cleared regularly. Well, that seems obvious, but again, when I walk around my neighbourhood, I don't see many locks on mailboxes because most mail obviously now comes electronically, but you should be shredding or destroying your personal and financial papers before you simply discard them, keeping them in a secure place if you want to keep them. Always cover the keypad at your ATM or at an EFTPOS terminal when entering your PIN. Be aware of your surroundings. Now, mostly to withdraw cash we'll need a PIN these days because it's over the $100 limit that's in place on EMV cards, cards with a chip in them. But there are significant scams with pinhole cameras being placed at ATMs. Now, simply a pinhole camera is placed over the card slot. They'll scan your card as it enters the ATM, but that's not enough. They then have captured your card details, but they don't have your PIN, and they still need that. And it's something that they then add a pinhole camera directly above the keypad, so it's a tiny little camera that sits on a computer chip and might just be sitting in a small box, tiny little fixture to the ATM. They film you punching in your ATM, and then they wait for you to leave. And they simply collect everyone's accounts, as many as they can. They then go back to the ATM, remove their equipment that skimmed all of the card details and has video of the people punching in their PIN, and they match those together and then use a machine to duplicate your card and steal cash. And that's been a very common strategy, particularly for organised crime in Europe. So that's something to be very aware of. Cover up your keypad at ATMs, very important. Obviously keep your virus protection software up to date. That's on your laptops, computers, mobiles. Ensure that your virus and security software is up to date, and you run it. Don't just have it sitting there, make sure it's being run. You should be running a scan at least once a week, if not once a day, and making sure that that software is up to date. Don't recycle or reuse passwords. So I hope I'm not labouring the point with that one, but we've been over that already. Don't use the same password for multiple accounts. Regularly change them and use a combination of alphanumeric characters and symbols. But headline there is don't use the same password for every account. Limit your use of public computers. So again, this is important because we still see people using public Wi-Fi to do their internet banking or to make payments over PayPal. And very simple way to divert Wi-Fi traffic through another computer, record the keystrokes, send up a little alarm to the criminal when someone accesses a banking site, hit record, and you can record someone's username or their login number and their passcode, and that's very easily done. And a free Wi-Fi identifier is very easy to copy. So I could set up my computer in Pitt Street Mall, call it Pitt Street Free Wi-Fi. People will connect to my computer. I simply record their activity, and then I can flag it when they access a bank website or a PayPal to pay for something. Record those details, and then they're in my possession now, and I've stolen your PayPal identity or your banking identity. So don't use free Wi-Fi for those types of things. Use it for looking at tourist spots or maybe sending out a tweet or something, but don't use it for your bank account. Make sure you always log out of public Wi-Fi networks so that the next time you're in that same location, your phone or your tablet or your computer doesn't immediately log back into that Wi-Fi. Now there are also VPN clients available. Now what a VPN client is, it's a small piece of software that comes between you, your computer, and any Wi-Fi connection. It's most commonly a public Wi-Fi. So it encrypts all of your traffic so that even if someone is recording the traffic between your computer and the public Wi-Fi, it's been encrypted, so they can't record it and keep your data. So those VPN clients can be very useful as an extra layer of security. Excuse me. Some other tips. Banks will never ask you what your PIN number is. Not over the phone, not over an email, and they'll never ask you to click on a link to open up your account. So just be wary of that. We should knock those things right out now. If you are being asked to provide your details, maybe for a phone app or for a new account you're being asked to start, make sure that it is legitimate by, you're the one that initiated contact, you're the one that downloaded the app, for example. It's a trusted site that you use, be it iTunes App Store, or it's something that's required for your employment, so it's been recommended to you. Don't be reluctant to ask who will have access to your information and which third parties it may be supplied to, or shared with, or sold to, and ask to see a copy of the privacy policy of the business before you supply your details. Don't forget that you're dealing with humans here, and the fact that they have a privacy policy should govern the fact that their employees also aren't allowed to send out your information to their associates as well. Only use trusted online payment websites for items won at online auctions or purchased online. Don't make payments outside of those systems. So someone might, if you win an auction, someone might offer to meet you and pay less if you pay cash. Not only are you falling outside the protection of those websites then, but you're risking physical harm. So there are some places now where police stations will offer a safe physical site outside their police station. They'll say if you want to make a payment for eBay, for example, they'll organise a meeting in the courtyard of the police station where you can meet your person, make the exchange, and then leave again. So they're organising these types of safe sites. So look out for those as well if you do those types of things. Review bank statements. Look for anything that looks weird. There are free credit history reports available now from a few of the agencies if you're worried, and report anything straight away. The sooner you report these types of things, obviously, the more likely you are to be refunded by your institution, and also the more likely the authorities can catch up to that person. So it's important to get onto this stuff quickly, not 6 months later. Be alert to POS systems that insist on a swipe. We almost would never see those anymore. certainly in Australia I'm talking about. So banks now use credit card systems and debit cards that have the EMV system, which is the chip embedded in your card. So EMV stands for Europay, MasterCard and Visa, and those are the chips that are embedded in cards now, the touch and go system. So that's a very good system. So there should be no swiping really anymore. And certainly don't ever lose sight of your credit card. If you're paying at a retail station or in a restaurant, don't lose sight of your card. It should always be in your sight. That's important as well. Don't respond to scam emails or letters promising huge rewards if bank account details are supplied or in return for the payment of release fees or legal fees. And don't send them your rates notice or your bank statement if they ask for that. None of that stuff is required unless you're physically establishing your identity with a banking institution or opening a bank account. The 100-point identity type sites. If someone or a law firm is purporting to send you a letter that you've got a long-lost relative that's left you money, they haven't. That's a scam. Immediately let me tell you, even if you had a relative that was called that lived in that country, it's a scam, trust me. So in relation to social networking sites, always use the most secure settings. I can't stress this enough. And use the two-factor authentication. Don't accept unsolicited friend requests. So if you don't know the person, just say no. There's no harm done there. If you travel, tell your bank that you're traveling. You don't want to be overseas and they block overseas transactions because they think someone's stolen your card. So it's very easy. Mostly you can do this online. Let your bank know that you're traveling, what country you'd be traveling to, and it certainly helps with your security if that's the case. Certainly, and especially when you're back as well. Let them know you're back. So what type of incidents are we seeing mostly that's leading to loss and identity theft? So targeted emails are by far the biggest. Now those within targeted emails, that can exist as a click here to open your online banking. So it might be a message saying there's a problem with your online banking, please click here to verify your account. What will then happen is it won't take you to the bank's website, it will take you to their website that they've constructed to look exactly like the bank's website. It will have a login page, so you'll put in your login identity, be it a number or your email address. It will then ask you to put in your password, which you duly do. Now, it will almost always then come up with an error saying, apologies, our website is down for maintenance. Please check back later. Please check back in 24 hours. What that gives the criminal then is 24 hours. They've got your login name and your password. They've got 24 hours to empty your account because you weren't entering those details to the bank website. You were entering it to their website, which they recorded. So be very careful about that type of thing. Viruses are also still the biggest problem. So the graph there is saying that ransomware or encryption type emails are about 1/3 of the occurrence. We see that would probably be higher in the last 6 months with a really ramp up of encrypto viruses. So similar thing, it'll send you a link or a file, perhaps a PDF file, saying that you need to open this file. It's a receipt from the post office, or it's some goods that have arrived for you. You need to click here to receive them. That kicks off a bit of code that then starts encrypting everything on your computer. It will reach out to your business network and start encrypting all of your files very quickly, very efficiently. And it doesn't do it from A to Z. It will do it in a random order. So it's difficult to stop the fire spreading. So that's extremely important not to be clicking on those types of things. And talk to your IT administrator, and in a few slides we'll highlight these types of things again. So they're the main types of ones we see. Targeted emails and encryption type things happening as well. So online scams and fraud are pretty big. Dating and romance, probably the biggest, most lucrative, cost-effective scam that we see in the market today, and unfortunately we've had clients suffer with this quite a lot, where they are asked to join a romantic singles hookup type site. They're then taken on dates with partners of their choice. Generally there's only one or two partners that service the whole website, and they go on 1 or 2 dates with everybody. And of course, there's never any intention to have any integrity about these types of sites, but unfortunately, people invest in them. They believe that they are in love. They send money either overseas or to the person who has been on the date with them, and we've seen certainly Australian citizens losing hundreds of thousands of dollars by sending money to people they believe in love with. Now, the problem with this is once you have fallen victim to this type of scam, it's shown that you are more likely to fall victim to the same type of scam or another scam again. These tend to be very trusting people. They flag themselves as having money, and so they're a target for criminals. And there have been instances where criminals have been caught with lists of individuals to contact, and they share those between different criminal organisations. These are the suckers, basically, sucker lists. So it does happen. So do be careful with those types of things operating very openly. There's no license you need to operate a dating site. So the next one that we'd flag would be unexpected prizes. So unexpected prizes, inheritance, money. You get a letter from a law firm saying your long-lost relative has left you some money. Please send $350 so that we can access the money for you and send it to you. Then send your rates notice so that we can establish your identity, and a bank statement so that we can put the bank. So again, you can see what they're doing. They're just asking to steal your identity. So don't fall for those. It is always a scam. Always. Threat or extortion. We see less of that now because the other ones are so lucrative. It's much easier to you catch more with honey than you do with. Yeah. So threat or extortion, we don't see that very often these days. Jobs and investments, similar inducements to click on or to provide money. So the Queensland Police actually have a very good page on their website. I can put that up later on, where they'll highlight the latest online scams or frauds that they see to warn people. So in terms of cybercrime, what are we talking about? Spam, any unwanted email. You might be offered free goods or prizes, cheap products, promises of wealth, anything. Anything that's unwanted electronic mail is given the term spam. So phishing, another name for a targeted email. So a way that criminals trick people into giving out their personal or financial details. Phishing messages often pretend to come from legitimate businesses or banks or financial institutions or Australia Post or Telstra, and they're asking you to click on a link or open up a PDF file. So it's extremely difficult. It's a form of social engineering in a way. We can't help but click on the PDF because we want our parcel or we want our Christmas present delivered, that type of thing. Now once someone has fallen for these scams, I mentioned earlier, they exchange details. Criminals have lists of these types of people. They will send a specific targeted email to someone so that they'll fall for it again, and that's called spear phishing, when you actually target a certain person to click on a link. It's not just a random thing you send out to thousands of people, and that's spear phishing. So some of the things that we see in terms of hacking is people gaining control of your computer without permission, and this is still a popular fraud where you'll receive a call from someone purporting to be from Microsoft. They're a service technician and they just need you to access a certain website so that they can service your computer, purporting to say that, oh look, you're showing up as having a problem, we'll fix it for you. They'll ask you to click on probably something like Team Viewer or Rescue or Log Me In, click on a link, and they immediately take control of your computer. What they do then is one of two things. They'll either string you along and say, yes, we can see errors in your computer. If you want us to fix it, it's $500. You need to click on this link and give us your credit card details, otherwise your computer won't work ever again. Or they'll simply then encrypt your computer and send you a message on screen saying, enter your credit card details to decrypt your computer. So that type of hacking is the most common one we see now. So if you are contacted by these types of people, no, they're not from Microsoft. No, they can't see that you've got an error with your computer just because you're surfing the web, and just hang up. Malware, generally delivered through email, or there are some codes that you can get on a drive-by website, so a website that you're asked to click on. easily prevented by keeping your virus protection up to date and making sure that it's working and active. So easily preventable, these types of things, malware. Denial of service attacks, more common for commercial networks. So a business might get a denial of service. So it's simply where their website is hit with so many service requests that it either crashes or they simply can't service all of the hits that they're coming in. So it's like an attack, a cyber attack, usually from a network of zombie computers that we call a bot network. Most recently in the news was the 2016 census website was hit by a denial of service attack where there's so many hits coming in, the website can't control the traffic. It would be like a million cars trying to get through an intersection at once. It's just not possible. So difficult to prevent and certainly undesirable. So how can you fix things? Well, you need to talk about these types of things. Don't leave it until too late. Don't leave it to your IT provider thinking that they'll simply fix it for you. Not only is that higher cost to you, but sometimes the criminals get ahead of the good guys and they do seize control of networks. And unfortunately, we do see clients that have had their networks encrypted with no recourse but to either scrap their whole network and start again from an old backup, or pay the 500 bitcoins or 1,000 bitcoins, whatever it takes, to have their network decrypted. So need to get ahead of this. And the social engineering side, where employees are vulnerable, probably the most vulnerable point in a network are the staff, or the users of the network. They are induced to click on an email, and that's the toughest thing to prevent. So from the Australian Signals Directorate, the top 4 strategies: ensure that your operating systems are up to date, minimise the number of users with administrative privileges. Now, administrative privileges simply means they can install software. If Windows denies them the permission to install malware or download the bad PDF, then that's another form of protection. Make sure that all of your software applications, especially the ones that are self-updating or silently updating themselves, make sure they're constantly up to date, and use application whitelisting. So that simply means the applications that are allowed to run on your network are the ones, there's a list of them, and they're the only ones that are allowed to run. So that's, if they're on the whitelist, so Adobe and Outlook and things like that, anything that's not one of those applications, the system won't let it run. So it's less likely to inject malware into your system. So again, some more stats. Frightening that these are probably understated. Approximately half of cybercrime incidents are perpetrated by people known to the victim. We still have about a quarter of people share their social media password with others. So their partner or their family or their friends. And almost half of people have experienced cybercrime in the past 12 months. So frightening statistics, and I throw this in simply to again underline the fact that it can happen to anyone. Don't think it won't happen to you. The incidences are vastly underreported. Respondents who did not report cyber security incidents were asked why they didn't report them. 44% said, look, there's just no reason. There's no benefit to me. It's just going to be embarrassing. I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen, delete that account and start again, even when there's been financial loss. Some people said that, look, it was just a minor thing, I'm not going to worry about it, even though it might mean they get attacked next time. 20% said the attackers probably wouldn't get caught, which may or may not be true, given that jurisdictional issues are a problem and sometimes the perpetrators are overseas. 16% simply didn't know that they'd been hacked or didn't know that their identity was being misused or stolen. And the rest said, look, it was going to be negative publicity, so we just didn't report it. We didn't want anyone to know about it. We're hoping our IT administrators can fix it. So that's why people tend not to report these types of things. But if you don't know, how can you fix it? So what can you do with that? The main internal factors that contributed to cybersecurity incidents were staff errors. So even though staff were told, do not click on this link. If you see an email from Australia Post, do not click on this link. It only takes one staff member to click on the link and encrypt the whole business network. So that's social engineering, where people want to click on things is the biggest problem. So we try to stop these emails before they even come into a network. But again, because there's so many thousands are received every day, and I would estimate that probably 70 or 80% of the traffic coming into a business would be spam. It only takes a few of those emails to get through. So if we have a poor security culture and staff aren't aware of the dangers, then you have a big problem. So you need to identify that risk in your business or with your clients. The main external factors that contributed to a cybersecurity incident are a targeted attack and third-party risk or vulnerability. So a software that wasn't patched, or where you've been targeted in terms of the denial of service, so perhaps your website isn't robust, or you don't receive communications from your online help to say that, look, we need to shut down the website, we're being attacked, and just simply restart it again, those types of things. So those are the vulnerabilities we see. Probably the most serious is that staff culture, poor security culture. So don't rely on the IT guys to fix your incidents. Get on top of this, get in front of this, so if something happens, yeah, we've got good IT staff that will help us, but it's unlikely to happen because our staff are aware of the risk. There's the risk with sharing data. So with things like cloud sharing apps, so Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, SkyDrive, Dropbox, iCloud, there's an issue here with sharing data to home so that staff can work at home, or they share it with other clients. Because that's now outside of your firewall, they can then be shared with anybody, with their home computer, with their tablet, their mobile. They might leave their computer on a train, or simply with competitors. If they decide they want to go and work somewhere else, they can very easily share all that data that's left your business with a competitor. And that theft of intellectual property is another financial and large risk to businesses, and that's something we help clients with very regularly. So be on top of a policy of cloud sharing apps. Gauge your own company's cybersecurity expertise. So is the threat of cybercrime discussed in your firm, or is it something that you just leave to the IT staff? Do you know if you're being attacked, or if there have been any incidents? Are you putting resources where they need to be? Are you simply paying IT people when you could be putting those resources in the staff and educating them better? Are the executives' machines checked as well? They're certainly not immune to this type of thing. Do you have a strategy or an approach that is aligned with the business? So sure, we allow cloud sharing apps, but here are the only things you're allowed to put on them. You need a policy surrounding this. Once the genie gets out of the bottle, it's too late. Do you have a tested incident response plan for cybersecurity issues? Even if you're not an IT person, you can talk to someone who is. So if it's your home network or if it's your commercial network, have a plan, have backups in place, have things stored off-site so that if something does happen, you're well placed to remedy this type of thing quickly. And you don't have to deal with criminals and bitcoins and all types of nasty incidents. So that's a slide there. Simply trying to reinforce that you need to conduct a cyber risk assessment. It's really important just to address this type of thing. If you do, you're well ahead of the game. Move from we need to do something about it, to we actually have done it. A quick case study to finish off. The reason this stuff's in the news a lot these days is in 2012, a Russian hacker stole 6 million usernames and passwords from LinkedIn. We know this because LinkedIn told us. The passwords were hashed, simply meaning that they were sort of studied, analysed in a fingerprint sense, and they were cracked by various online identities. This led to an understanding of how users created passwords. Around the same time, other large password breaches occurred: eHarmony, Gorka, Rockyou, which was a music website, and others. So hackers are starting to amass a lot of online identities and their passwords. It was found that the most popular password is 123456, or password, or QWERTY, which is simply the top line of your keyboard. If you're sitting at a computer, you can look down, it's simply QWERTY. So something like 1Q, 2W, 3, 4R, 5T is not a complex or secure password. Again, if you look down at your keyboard, it's simply the top two lines alternated. And these are the top 3 or 4 passwords that we see around the world. Doesn't matter how many times we tell people not to do it, that's what we see. It gets worse. With a known password, hackers could reverse engineer the method used by websites to store and encrypt those passwords. So knowledge is power. They're learning more and more how to do this. And they learn the rules that users implemented to construct their passwords. By that I mean the letter O becomes 0, A becomes the @ and people tend to use a capital letter at the start, a year in the middle, or a symbol at the end, and that's a typical password, Timothy 2016. That password would take a supercomputer about 0.3 of a millisecond to crack. So it's extremely important. If that website has been compromised, that even if your password has been obtained, it can't be used to access your internet banking, for example, or your PayPal, or your Facebook. That it's only that one hack and it's easily changed. So more passwords are being stolen all the time, and they are creating password lists that hackers can simply search for your profile, inject that password into the website and see if it's going to work for them. This is happening right now. So on average, most people will have 26 online accounts, but only 2 or 3 passwords. Normally there's one for banking, one for social media, and one for everything else. And that's why these hacks, like the LinkedIn one, are so concerning. If someone has your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 password, you're severely compromised. So I've got hundreds of online accounts because of client activity and apps that we use. So I use a good password manager. It generates passwords for me all the time and stores them for me and changes them. So it's a very secure way. If I had one password for all of my accounts and accounts that I use to provide information to clients, then a breach would be an absolute disaster. So I use a password manager. But again, do what suits you, as long as you're doing something. If you do catch wind of a site, for example LinkedIn, or a service being compromised, always change your password, even if you think it won't happen to me. Even if you don't receive an email, if you see something in the media or if you see something reported, change your password. Ensure you have multi-factor authentication or 2-step verification enabled for most of your critical accounts. It's initially a bit of a hurdle, and it does prevent you being hacked from a remote location, certainly somewhere out of the country. What happens is once you enable the 2-step verification, usually you will enter either another email address or your mobile phone number. Then every time a computer logs in that's not from a new location, it will send you a text message and you have to enter that code. So it's very secure. It sounds like a lot of trouble, but it is not, and it really does give you peace of mind for your online identity. 2-factor authentication. And finally, it's important to recognize, have a unique password, different one for each account. You can manage them very easily. It's easy to do, and enable 2-factor authentication. That's pretty much it for today. So if you do have any problems, or if you believe you're a victim of identity crime, report the loss immediately to your bank or your financial institution. Inform the police, if it's obviously in terms of severity of the incident. You can contact OSCERT if you've been hacked or you have an encryption incident. They're very good, not-for-profit organisation. Another not-for-profit organisation is ID Care. Those are their contact details. They've also got a network of people that can help you. If you do have another incident, feel free to contact Vincents as well. So thanks again for attending the webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up or send me an email through the Vincents website. And thank you very much for listening.